Welcome to another episode in our CEO series here on L.E.A.R.N Invest. So today we have the privilege of speaking with Burchenson from VMIL. It's going to be a great interview as usual. The first thing that I'm going to ask you to do is like this video, subscribe if it's your first time here, and be sure to check out the links in the description that speaks to our community, what we're about, etc. So let's get started.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com
and follow us on all social media platforms at L.E.A.R.N Grow Invest.
All right, welcome back. So let us pray. Thank you, Lord, for this day. Thank you for the fact that we're able to see it. We thank you, Lord, for the ability to produce wealth, as your word says. We ask you to give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding to be able to make good investment decisions. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, everyone, welcome. I think this is going to be a good interview. I mean, all of our interviews have been good so far. So please join me in welcoming Rez. Rez, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thanks.
Thank you for our invite. Thank you for being here today. All right. So before we get into the questions, tell us a little bit about you, your background, so on. So help persons to understand a little bit about you.
Okay, no problem. First of all, thanks, Jermaine, for inviting me, and welcome to your listeners. I don't know the count or how many count you have thus far.
A few persons here. I saw about 9 persons a minute ago.
A couple thousand. It's fine. Good stuff.
Well, a couple thousand subscribers. Most persons actually join about halfway through. So
okay, no problem. Yeah. Well, good afternoon, and thanks for giving me the privilege to come and represent VMIL and to an extent the VM group to your constituents. So who is Rez? Country boy, grew up in a place called Dallas Castle. It's about 10 miles outside of Papine, farming community. Grew up there, went to a all-age school, Dallas all-age school. At the time, my mom was a teacher, my father was a policeman. Very ambitious people who then became principal. My father became a lawyer. Eventually, he became a magistrate. Typical country boy kind of lifestyle. We didn't have animals, but you had to get up and do the chores as per usual. But my father made it very clear very early on that the education is important to him, and that his kids ought to matriculate to university. So when I went to Woolmer's Boys School as a country boy, did all the subjects, did fairly well, went to sixth form. I remember going to sixth form, asking my dad, should I do law or medicine? And he said, well, there are too many lawyers. So I decided to do the sciences. First week of sixth form, walk into, I think it's a physics lab or chem lab. And the guy said, like, 4-hour lab. I was like, sorry, it's not gonna work. So I switched to business subjects. Had 2 great econ teachers. One is actually deputy gov at the Bank of Jamaica, Robert Stennett. Another one was Mr. Richards. And they just spoke econ like it was having a meal. And I fell in love with econ. Read the entire econ book in 3 months. And, just kind of watching what's happening. I remember the day I was introduced to stocks, because I always was intrigued by stocks. I remember I was talking to a gentleman, and he said, anybody can buy stocks? I was like, really? Anybody can buy stocks? And he said, sure, just open an account. And the journey started there. Left Woolmer's, went to UE. Left UE, went to Ministry of Finance for a year. Left Ministry of Finance, and the career really took off. I remember being interviewed by Sandra Shirley to be to be a management trainee. And at the time, Sigma was owned by ICD and BNS. A lot of persons don't know that. ICD eventually bought out BNS. But I just got exposed to a number of bright persons within Sigma. And Sigma actually became a factory for a number of other persons who have gone on to do amazing things in the financial sector. And the journey continued, became research manager, went to Pan Caribbean, left Pan Caribbean, went to manage prime asset management, and eventually landed at the great VM Group.
All right. Wow. Thank you. That's a very interesting background.
Yeah.
Thank you
And that's
for
the
that.
shortened version, eh?
Yes, I imagine. So I know my wife will be happy to hear that you went to Woolmer's, because she's a Woolmer's alum as well. So all
You're a
right.
lucky gentleman. You're a lucky gentleman.
Right. Yes, definitely. All right. So can you introduce VMIL as a company to us?
Okay, no problem. So within so a lot of persons know Victoria Mutual as VMBS,
Yes.
this mortgage giant, been around for over 140 years. But over the years, the management of the group sought to expand the range of services. So a number of persons don't know that we have VM money transfer, VM property services, VM pensions management, VM innovations, VM foundation, VM UK. And they also started VM wealth management. In VM wealth management, we do asset management, so offer unit trust services. So somebody who wants to start the journey of investing, great way to start is unit trust, because those portfolios are managed. Within VM wealth management, we do, let's call it treasury. I would call it the fixed income book. It's a fixed deposit. It's a line of business for us also. We do capital markets. So an example is, to make it resonate very easily for your members, is we did the dollar IPO, very successful IPO. And then within VM Wealth, we also do bond, equity, and digital asset trading, right? Not only bonds and equities, bonds, equities, and digital assets trading, And then, any other ways that we can make a buck, we'll do. VM Wealth Management, VM Wealth Management is actually owned by VM Investments Limited.
Yes.
And VM Investments Limited is listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. 80% is owned by VMBS, and 20% is actually owned by the Jamaican public. So a number of persons will know VMIL being a company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, and we do quite a bit of stakeholder engagement. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we actually had an investor briefing, got quite a bit of engagement. So we're kind of building on that foundation.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, that was a nice summary that you gave us there. And one of the things that, investors, or we encourage them to understand, is how the company makes money. So for VMIL, in simple terms, how do you make money?
Okay, so in VMIL, they call it the parent company. We have a loan portfolio, so we borrow monies and we unlend. We have a very nice loan portfolio. Within that portfolio is also a very decent sized margin loan book. And investors are taking to margin loans to accelerate their portfolio growth. That's the German smile. Obviously, have taken on some margin loans from us. Within VML also, we see good opportunities. So for example, a couple weeks ago, we disclosed that we are entering the property space. We've done 2 acquisitions. One is a building that we want to obviously get some capital appreciation and some rental income. And then the other is a land for real estate development. And then, so that's VMIL, and the wholly owned subsidiary of VMIL is VM Wealth Management. And I just described the elements of VM Wealth Management. So I'm actually very glad that you asked that specific question, because many times when I engage investors or just members of the public, they are not making the connection that VM Wealth Management is actually owned by VMIL. And it's VMIL which is listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So any opportunity I get, I do have to make that that connection to VM Wealth Management, because VM Wealth Management actually earned, I would say, 80% of the income for the consolidated VMIL.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned the property space, but also we saw news recently of you being in the private equity space. So a couple of things that I wanted to talk to you about here. First was the launch of a fund, the Jamaica Actor Small and Medium Enterprises Fund. Can you tell us about that fund and what are your plans for the future?
All right, no problem. So one of the problems that we're trying to solve is this notion that there is, well, this thesis or this theory that a number of members of the business class aren't getting access to capital. So how are we solving that? So in the VMIL and VM Wealth Management space, we provide debt equity or debt capital, sorry. And we allow companies to list on the JSE to raise equity capital. What we're also seeing, though, is that we're seeing a need for companies that want to scale. Companies that are operating. So these are not startups. They're operating. They have systems, management, staff, etc. And they're looking capital to take the business to the next level. And what we're trying to do is, how do we engage some of those persons, not all persons? Obviously, they have to meet some established criteria. It must be in areas in which we believe that there is growth. There must be an exit, and we're providing equity capital. And the most efficient way that we're found to do that is simply, let's start a fund, and the fund will be managed by some fund manager, and the fund manager will do the deal selection, funding, monitoring, and then after some time, after some value has been created, some exit down the road. So we had a conversation with Actors. Actors is out of London, and we started this fund in association or in conjunction with the DBG and the World Bank. VMIL, we committed $10 million US. The Development Bank of Jamaica committed $5 million, so the total size is 15. We have launched. We're now in the throes of operationalizing that fund to be deployed, but we also need to, as we deploy the capital, to replenish the capital. So we're at 50 now. The objective is to do some fundraising to get it to 30, deploy, 50 deploy, and eventually a fund size of $100 million. So that, so we're very excited about that. We have been in the marketplace meeting with potential founders, and we believe that we have a fairly robust pipeline. So come 2023, a lot of capital we deployed in some of these businesses.
Okay. Is that the reason for, this is kind of off topic here, but is this the reason for maybe the partnership that you formed with communities like Kingston Beta? Because then that would maybe, okay.
Yes, you're very perceptive, Jermaine. So we are trying to, so obviously for a fund like this, pipeline is important.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean immediate pipeline, but pipeline for 2023, 2024, 2025. So we actually need to get into the ecosystem and get into the community. Kingston Beta is just one member of the ecosystem that we're forming a partnership with. I'm actually very thrilled about the Kingston Beta partnership and how they have, taken us into their fold. Jermaine, who runs it, is a really amazing guy. And we see lots of businesses in the tech space coming out of Kingston Beta and have come out of Kingston Beta that will likely list on the JSE in the next 3 to 5 years. So we're very excited about that partnership.
Okay. So one of the things I wanted to ask you about this fund is there an ideal timeline when you start to work with a company? Because we assume it can't be short term, but is there like, okay, we would want to invest if it is that we're able to exit within 3 years, for example, 3 to 5 years or so on. Is there an ideal time frame?
Well, the fund is a 10-year fund, and we'll determine the best time to enter some of these opportunities and the best time to exit. Obviously, we want to ensure that there's, I wouldn't say maximum, but optimum value creation over a period of time. And the fact that one thing that we like also is that the junior market is one easy way of exiting, but it doesn't mean it can be by a management buyout or buyout from another strategic partner. So there are many ways that we believe that we can realize value in the medium term.
All right, that's one of the questions I was going to ask as well. All right, perfect. So it was recently shared that you took, I believe, a 30%. Was it for Home Choice? You recently took a stake in Home Choice. You've been doing a lot of deals. I can't keep up with all of them, but I think it was 30% in Home Choice, if I'm not mistaken.
No, I don't think we have disclosed the percentage.
Okay, so it's one of them that you took 30% in. I'll find it here somewhere, right?
Sure.
But talk to us about the Home Choice deal, and potentially the roadmap for the company based on previous comments about what you're looking for in terms of maybe some of these
No problem.
deals.
No problem. So before I kind of dive in, I need to kind of step back and recognize the team that I support. I don't lead them, I support them. Or I try to support them as best as possible. Sometimes that's a different conversation in terms of a level of support. But the team is very results focused, very growth focused, very customer obsessed also in terms of ensuring that our customers are well served. And across all the businesses, asset management, capital markets, treasury, and bond trading, we're always looking for opportunities. So Home Choice came to us from Crossway Capital. Mark engaged us. Mark is a really amazing guy. Engaged us to say, well, he has an opportunity, or a candidate that he sees lots of value. And we engaged, and when we went to meet the principals, Chairman Munzi and her sons who run the business, certainly I was blown away as to what they were doing on limited resources and the inroads they were making in the space that they're occupying. They are such a well-known brand in a very competitive space. And obviously, lots of upside potential based on the size of the addressable market. For those who don't know, Jamaican spices are world renowned, but I think our market share globally is less than 1%. So it shows you the addressable upside. So we engaged, and what ended was us saying, no man, we have to be a part of this story. The story already is amazing. So let's tack our name onto the story. So we had an investment, and Home Choice is doing very well, led by the chair. And just last week Saturday at the JME award, they got an award. Don't remember the exact award they got, but they continue to win awards year after year. And I would say that this company is one to watch. We've seen other companies in the same space listed on the JC, and you're seeing the growth potential. This company's actual growth and growth potential is just amazing. So we're there trying to see how we can accelerate that growth. Obviously the company is led by the chair and our sons. So very excited for us.
Any timeline possible listing?
So
2023.
No, so that's a conversation that we're having, and I can't speak to, I can't represent because I'm not a board member.
Okay.
So I hope the chairman doesn't call me tonight and give me a lashing. But we will decide, or the board will decide the best time to do a public offer. I think that the chairman has said it, that that's one of the objectives of the organization. Obviously, as a invitee to some of those meetings, I'll weigh in. But yeah, it's a lovely growth story.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so we'll stay tuned for any updates for that. So are there any other private equity opportunities that you're able to share with us at this point?
No, I can't share because we haven't signed, nor have we disclosed it to the Jamaica Stock Exchange.
Okay.
But what I will say though is that we are making lots of inroads in the PE space. The capital markets team, led by Mr. Dwight Jackson. No more persons know Dwight. We're wrapping ourselves around the ecosystem, and it's a key pillar of our growth strategy actually, because we call it a pocket of value, and it's not only because it realizes some benefit to the organization, but when you consider the fact that some of these businesses, if they were to get the requisite capital to go and the governance to go and the guidance to go, how much more that they can contribute to the overall economy. And certainly when you speak to Mrs. Street Forest and she speaks about the value creation of the Jamaica junior market with, I don't know, I think it's less than 100 companies listed on the junior market. If that were to move by fivefold, and it's very possible that the junior market can go by fivefold. It just shows the value creation that can be bound to local investors, but also the overall economy, employment, taxes, the multiplier effect. Very exciting, very exciting.
We've been noticing a general just sort of aggressive move by VM overall, right? So it's almost every week I think I'm seeing some articles, some reference. Is that at what point did the strategy change? Because I imagine it must be a change in strategy, because a year and a half ago we didn't see VMIL being this visible, at least. So I figure at some point the strategy would have changed. So what went into that decision? What's the long-term play here that you're seeing the opportunities for?
Okay, so just to be clear, you're referring VM Group or VMIL?
VMIL. I mean, we're seeing overall more visibility from VM as a whole, including the group. But specifically, of course, since this is Learn, Grow, Invest, VMIL is where we're most interested in for this particular conversation.
All right, no problem. So here's how I'd like. Here's how I describe it, right? So the VM Group is in a transformation mode, and I would say behind the scenes we have been doing lots of work. Persons who work at VM will speak about the intensity, speak about the flywheel, and it's just increasing. But we've been doing quite a bit, but we haven't been highlighting to the local community. I'm talking group in terms of what we've been doing. And the brand transformation that was executed last year was simply to say that having done all of these things, that what we're going to put forward is a totally different look and feel for the group. Kind of, putting everything together in one, in one grand plan, one grand cake, etc. And, lots of energy was created around that brand transformation. And we are not going to be shy anymore about our accomplishments and what we're doing. I think that we have a story which is compelling, sometimes more compelling than others, and we're just going to be audacious and let's call it brag about it. Why not? Because our team members across the group, all 900 persons, are working very hard. So, we have to show what our team members are doing and what they're capable of doing, because also that's also important for talent retention and talent acquisition. So that's on the group front. And it's something similar on the VML side. We're saying, let's highlight a lot more of our successes. Let's find creative ways of engaging the Jamaican population. Let's show up in spaces that we never normally show up before. Let's create some partnerships that we didn't have before. Because to grow this business, partnerships is also an important pillar of the growth strategy. So, for example, if we were to go out on our own to try and meet founders, it will take us some time, but why not have a partnership with Jermaine and Kingston, Beta and Ingrid, where we can wrap our hands around that community in a shorter period of time. So more and more you're gonna see us doing being out there, that's promoting our businesses. We believe that the growth story is compelling for VM Group. We serve close to 1 million customers.
Wow.
But there are 6 million Jamaicans on the planet. And then, VMIL, I don't know we're going to go there, is trying to be a regional player. We're trying to close an acquisition in the Caribbean. So if you include those Caribbean people within the Caribbean and in the diaspora, perhaps up to 10 million. So it just shows to you the upside potential for the group. And we still have a lot of work to do. There's still a number of things that we need to fix in the business, but you're gonna see us. Can't run from us.
Right. Good. I mean, that's good. I think. I mean, one of the things I always say here is that we like to hear more about what a company is doing. So certainly seeing more things from VMIL helps us to understand what is happening, and it's easier to fill in the blanks in terms of the strategy when we see or hear about what's happening. So let's keep it going here. So we would have
Jeremy, 1 second. Let me just kind of, there's one thing I forgot to mention, that some months ago, I don't remember how many months ago, the Corporate Governance Committee also approved a stakeholder engagement policy. So within that policy are some actions, for example, investor briefings, meeting with analysts, meeting with L.E.A.R.N, Go Invest. So that policy would have pushed us to be more out there in terms of stakeholder engagement.
okay.
So I'm kind of connecting strategy to action now. So you see more that's unfolding.
Great.
And,
great.
in our Q3 release, it's going to come out in a couple of weeks time. We're also going to show some stats in terms of the number of shares we had 2 years ago and how that has gone as an outcome of being more deliberate around stakeholder engagement.
Okay. So that means every time we reach out as L.E.A.R.N Go Invest for an interview, you'll be ready to go.
Anytime.
All right. So we saw recently that you did some work with the MFS group. Can you talk to us about that? Are there any other such opportunities that you see coming up for you?
Okay, no problem. So I remember the Saturday morning where I was when I got the call from the CEO of MFS. And he spoke about a possible transaction. I said, sure, we can do that for you. So one of the things that we try and do is that when principals come to us with transactions, we obviously try and ensure that we provide the requisite guidance to ensure that if they move forward, that there's a successful acquisition. I really love the MFS transaction. I liken it to a SPAC, special purpose acquisition vehicle, just based on its ingenuity. And there are a lot more opportunities that we are discussing with many other players. So you're gonna, quite sure you're going to see a lot more creative transactions coming to the fore, because our job is to provide guidance to ensure that principals solve some problems to kind of grow their businesses. I mean, that's our role as investment bankers on the capital market side. You come to us, you want a problem solved. How can we provide assistance? Because that assistance is not only with providing the capital, but the guidance and the projections and providing some view in terms of governance, readiness for, is the infrastructure ready to go public or take on debt? So, we get very intimate with the prospects who engage us because we want to ensure a successful transaction at the end of the day.
Okay. So there's also note when I was doing research, I saw an acquisition for the Republic Bank in Barbados. I believe the note that the press release said the transaction was approved, but there was some other work to be done. What's the status of that, and what's the landscape that you see in terms of opportunity in Barbados or possibly other countries?
All right, no problem. So this is no secret. We would have disclosed many times in our annual report that M&A is a key component of our strategy. And when the transaction came to us for Republic Funds, not Republic Bank, I mean, one day we'll buy Republic Bank in Barbados, but it's like this is a division of Republic Bank Barbados. They offer asset management services, much like our unit trust. They were kind of getting out of the business, and we discussed it internally and said, you know what, one of the competencies that we do have is asset management competence. We know how to put together portfolios of the various assets, whether it be stocks or bonds or real estate. And then based on the fact that we have spent some money on infrastructure, more so systems and people, that we believe it's a nice fit for us. It's like a bolt-on transaction. So we engaged, we were selected. There are 4 approvals required. We have gotten 3 of the 4. So the last one is the FSC in Barbados, and we're doing the usual conversation with the regulator. It would be nice if we concluded that transaction in 2022, because I've told my team that I'd love to be known as the CEO for a regional entity, not a Jamaican entity, and that their value would also increase. Their resume would increase, or just because they're working for a regional entity as compared to a Jamaican entity. So hopefully that will kind of get some fire in the belly for the transaction to be concluded this year.
All right, great.
So it's our foothold in the Southern Caribbean, and whenever we engage in Southern Caribbean, we see some opportunities. So we're going to capitalize on this one, and I'm quite sure in the years ahead we'll come and disclose other transactions that we are consummating in Barbados and otherwise.
Great, thank you for that. So there's one question here that I want to ask before I get to your most recent financials. I see that there was announced a relationship formed between Money Masters Limited and VM. Is there anything that you can tell us about that relationship, or is there anything we should expect to see coming out of that partnership soon?
Patience is a virtue, Jermaine. It's soon, boss, man. It's soon, boss. No, but seriously, so we know the CEO of Money Masters, Claudette, has been in the financial sector for quite some time. Really like engaging with Claudette. So we're engaged for a transaction. It's going through whatever process it needs to go through. I'm quite sure pretty soon Money Masters, not VM, will indicate what the transaction is, and I know that transaction will also be successful, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Claudette a few days ago. Very nice lady.
Yeah, really nice.
All right. All right, cool. So let's talk a little bit about your Q2 financial highlights. So you'd have had your investor briefing, and we'll put the link in the description. That was extremely informative. Congratulations on all your success. Just a few questions that I had after watching that. So you'd have shown growth in your net profits. What do you attribute that growth to? That's my first question.
Okay, well, let me step back. 2022 has been a tough year, really tough year. 2022 reminds me of the first year of COVID and 2009 after the financial sector crisis. Really tough year. Lots of business lines. So remember, I described 4 business lines: asset management, capital markets, treasury, and bond trading. Bond trading negatively impacted by just global conditions. There's a term that the traders like to use. Denise Marshall Miller, who runs that unit on our team, risk on or risk off. Risk on was first half or first 9 months of 2022. Nobody's trading. So certainly that business line was negatively impacted. Nonetheless, I mean, you have seen a number of transactions that would have disclosed on the capital market space, which is why it's really admirable that we have a balanced business where, across the 4 business lines, relative equal contribution, and the fact that we have talent to ensure that if one business line is negatively impacted by market conditions, that other business lines can make up that slack. So very challenging year, but first quarter, I think we have a fairly decent performance, and obviously we're going to ensure that the full year target of the organization is met, right? But I just want to point out something to your listeners, Jermaine, is that when your listeners assess the financial performance of a company such as VMIL, there are gonna be quarters. The performance quarter by quarter or quarter over quarter the previous year or the previous quarter is not going to be linear. They're going to be some quarters great, some quarters not so great. But I want your members to be assured that the team is results focused. I always want to ensure that year over year that we show some improvement in the profitability of the organization, because companies who buy stocks are buying growth, nothing else. So we're very committed to ensuring that 2022 is an amazing year, another amazing year.
Well, I mean, based on what we have been seeing in terms of just the last few months, I think it's definitely we're looking forward to the Q3 results and also to how you end the year. There was a mention of an increase in expenses. Can you talk to us about some of the factors that would have led to that increase? I'm especially interested in the staff costs, which would have increased by, I think, 52 million from last June to this one. So talk to us about overall increase in expenses. Is it something that you think will continue to increase based on the type of team you're trying to build, or is it just a few key hires that you had to make and you're going to be stable for a while?
All right, no problem. Great question, and thanks for highlighting that specific number. So let's talk about financial services. So financial services is nothing but talent. There are no robots in there. There's no machine. We have systems, but people drive this business. People drive execution. People drive service. People drive everything. And based on where we need to get to, and so we have a great infrastructure, but we have to kind of leave that infrastructure for growth and more growth. And because this business is a people business in a very competitive space, so let me tell you how competitive it is, right? We're regulated, right? We're listed, right? We're rated. just very challenging. And, as you know, in financial services globally, the brightest people on the planet work in financial services, except Rez, of course. Everybody below me kind of bright, right? So talent acquisition and talent retention is going to be important. So the more competitive it is the more you have to ensure that the people who are delivering, that they are adequately remunerated. So, what you've seen in terms of the last quarter is just ensuring that we are keeping the talent and that we're also growing the talent. Um, not only growing in terms of numbers, but in terms of competence. Because we spoke to private equity. We have to kind of build, we have to kind of hire for that competence and build that competence, and some of the other areas that we want to get to. We speak about digital asset trading, and we speak about wanting to explore the Southern Caribbean. All of that is about talent. So I can't be shy in terms of highlighting the growth in the staff costs, because it is that competence that's driving the overall net income.
Okay. All right. And finally, you mentioned, let me see if I can actually bring it up quickly. It was about your expansion in the region, right? So you mentioned, Caroline, and how that has been growing since your stake taken in 2019. How do you see that growing over the next, let's say, the mid to long term, and are you looking for any other territories to expand to?
Okay, great question. So after we made the Caroline acquisition, Caroline then was primarily a Bayesian company. We launched Caroline Jamaica to leverage the platform, and a couple months ago we actually launched in Trinidad. So the objective is launch, get it to some critical mass, then move on to another territory. And we have obviously always identifying possible territories, to invest in. In full transparency, persons will see our financial statements. They will see that Caroline is currently in the red, but rest assured that we are ensuring, that in short order that company will get to profitability. Some of the territories are profitable at this point in time, but we want the console to be profitable. Caroline has lots of legs. One of the things that we disclosed when we announced the acquisition at the AC Hotel is that we always said this was a long-term investment. It's a long-term investment. And persons who understand these types of business understand it's all about scale. That once you get to a particular critical mass and you're growing, all of that then flows to the bottom line. Yeah. So I'm very optimistic about the future of Caroline. We're going through those, I want to teething pain, but put in the work to expand the territories. But 3 to 5 years, we're very confident about where Caroline can take us.
Okay. All right, thank you. So what I'll do here is I do have some questions that I wanted to ask you, as just like 3 or 4 more to close up, but I wanted to take some from our community members since we have a few minutes left. So France is asking, what spaces or industries locally or regionally are you personally most excited about, and why?
Is that France from Uppercart in Mandeville?
I think so. Right?
Yeah, I met France a couple of weeks ago in Manchester. So France, if you're asking a question regarding our PE play, we're sector agnostic. As long as we see where our resources can create value and that there is, some measure of exit down the road, we will certainly engage. There are some industries, however, that we are more comfortable investing than others, but we just need to understand, as from this side, where are the risks, how can we minimize those risks, and we're off to the races. But we're any sector can engage us regarding investment. If we don't like it, we don't. If we do, we do, and we'll conclude a transaction.
Okay. All right, Ian is asking, how does the VM group restructuring add value for VMIL shareholders?
Okay, great question. That question was actually at our AGM or EGM a couple of weeks ago, and actually at investor briefing. So if you follow the conversation taking place around the VMIL, the VM group restructuring, is that they plan to create a financial holding company, and that financial holding company will likely raise capital to grow the companies within the financial holding company. One such company is going to be VMIL. So if the FHC can raise 20 billion from Australia, I'm sorry, my occupancy sensor keeps on going off. Then some of that capital will be deployed in VMIL to grow VMIL and subsequently VM Wealth Management. So, and in this business, capital is also very important. So you have talent is important, capital is important. So to the extent that the VM group restructuring creates additional capital sources, we're very excited about that.
Okay. All right. Orville was asking, when does Home Choice plan to list? But I think you answered that question already as best as you can.
Sure, but can I put a span in the wheel of most persons? So, again, I'm not a board member of Home Choice. If Home Choice continues to go as it continues to go now, maybe 10 years time we'll list it. But certainly, we want to ensure that we kind of optimize the value prior to listing.
Okay. All right. So you mentioned, I see another question here from Roger. I think, okay, so what's the status on the iCreate rights issue? I believe they mentioned VM would have been their partner for the transaction.
What can I say about iCreate's rights issue? It's going through the regulatory process, and that's a process set by the authorities that all of us have to abide by. When that process is concluded, then the management of iCreate will indicate the next steps.
Okay. Which means you're not able to give us any form of timeline.
No, because we can't, because we are in the throes of the regulator approval process.
All right, cool. All right, thank you. So just a couple more questions. You mentioned digital asset trading a couple of times. Is there a timeline for that? So and how are you already taking the steps to be able to be a part of that if it is offered by the JSE? Can you talk to us about that?
Great question. So just to show you forward-looking members of the management team, is the couple years ago, Denise Marshall-Miller, who ran bond and equity trading, title actually got amended to bonds, equities, and digital asset trading, because we see what's happening in the local marketplace, and digital assets is an emerging asset class that persons are asking for in Jamaica. Persons in Jamaica are actually trading in that space. So why not, capitalize on those opportunities through your known broker VM Wealth Management? So we are obviously going through the process along with the Jamaica Stock Exchange. So as soon as the Jamaica Stock Exchange is ready to offer same, I imagine a few weeks after that, we'll be able to do so. We're certainly ready.
Great. So I do know that you offer, I believe, US equities trading now, right? And that's one of the things I know that our community member is interested in. So I'll talk to you about that to see if we can maybe organize something around that specifically. I know a lot of persons are interested in that. So I think US trading and the digital asset trading, I think a lot of persons would be interested in learning more about. So
right.
We can talk about that at another time. All right. So what is VMIL's response to the rising of interest rates, and how do you see that impacting the company in the short to mid term?
Okay, another great question. So obviously we've been negatively impacted by the rise in interest rates globally and locally. So for example, I did indicate earlier in the conversation the fact that with rising interest rates globally, bond prices have been falling. When prices are falling, as you know, nobody's buying. So obviously, that business line was negatively impacted. Um, when they on the capital market side, so VMIL also borrows money to unlend. Couple years ago, when we went to borrow, we borrowed at about 6%. Earlier this year, we had a bond rate at about 8.75. So obviously, compressing spreads. So definitely negatively impacting the business. Fortunately, as I said before, we have a fairly balanced business, and other areas could pick up the slack. The outlook is still challenging. Just recently, the IMF actually reduced the growth forecast for Latin America and the Caribbean. So this issue of risk management and prudence actually come into play. Capital is also very important for this business. So I think we have a fairly robust risk management framework to kind of weather the storm. I'm hoping that the storm will end soon, because just that apprehension on the bond trading side, if not tempered, it's gonna negatively impact some of the other areas of the business. Not only my business, but
Yeah.
financial services industry, and even other areas, retail, tourism. So cautiously optimistic. But as members of the management team, we have to be very nimble and always be looking for pockets of value. Where it is that we see value that we can exploit.
Okay. Okay. All right. Franz has another question here. So he said, thanks for your response. You mentioned 2 real estate transactions, I think, right at the start. Can you speak to your plans for those?
Okay, no problem. So the one a office complex in the business district, we see an opportunity to create value. We've done it before. We have a property portfolio, so we know the drivers of real estate value. So we're executing on that strategy. The other is a vacant parcel of land in the business district. That's likely to be a property development down the road, not immediately. So in any business, there are some short-term plan, medium-term plans, and long-term plans. So we're seeing how we can, where those 2 opportunities fall, as we kind of plan going forward.
Okay. Right. Let me see. Orville is asking, what outlook do you have for the companies on the JSE? Any specific sector that you anticipate a boom from besides real estate?
Okay, no problem. So the JSE is a very interesting space. And my comment will cause some eyebrows to raise, but I'm seeing lots of activity on the junior market, and obviously, that activity is warranted primarily because of the growth rate of those companies. And we're seeing, obviously, since start of the year, lots of value being created, rightfully so. I would just ask investors to take a look at some of the companies on the main market. And I'm not flagging VMIL, far from. But I'm also seeing some very attractive valuations on the main market. Attractive valuations, attractive dividend yields in companies that are indeed growing, solid management, etc. So, one thing that we must always do as investors is look at the opportunities now, but where will the opportunity be created down the road? What's the next opportunity? And if you always, look at your portfolio like that, you will always be ahead of the curve. So that's my guidance to investors in terms of, the opportunities on the JSE.
Okay. But you said something there is that it is so interesting to me. I do think the main market is overlooked as well. I do think also in general that I was actually saying this last night on our Stocks to Watch episode that I think companies in general can do better in terms of dividends, right? So I think that as just the whole market, I'd love to see dividends closer to 5 to 10% instead of majority being 1 to 5%.
That's a dividend yield, right?
Yes, the dividend yield.
Well, Jermaine. So I am kind of biased, right? Because I don't think VML announced a dividend for 2022 yet.
Waiting for it.
No, but it's a serious topic though, and I'm sorry to laugh, but in financial services, capital is important, and capital is important because you're operating on a license issued by a regulator, and that license can be withdrawn. So you have to ensure that you abide by the terms of that license.
I get that.
So capital preservation, especially in these turbulent times. Remember I said that 2022 is akin to first year of COVID and 2009. It just shows the turbulence. I mean,
Fair enough.
if a global leader tomorrow morning were to wake up and say the wrong thing based on the tension globally, would operate in a different environment. So we have to be mindful of capital. However, with that said, though, and again, I put on my personal hat now, right? I am not, and this is me, my personal portfolio. I am not really caught up in dividend yield per se, because if I see the capital being deployed to provide growth, that's fine for me, because I'd rather not take a 2% yield, but take a 20% upside in terms of capital appreciation. Because, as an equity investor at my young age, that's what I really want, right? I want capital appreciation. But, that's just my nuanced view, and I just declare.
Well, I mean, I think you kind of pointed to where I was headed to as well, because, I mean, there are only two ways, two clear ways to make money from the market: capital appreciation or dividends. For those companies where, for example, investors have not seen capital appreciation maybe over the last 2 years or more, I mean, especially on the main market, a lot of those companies are trading currently at pre-COVID levels. I think to compensate a lot of those investors, seeing a dividend, whether you call it a special dividend or something, I think that would help at least to compensate for some of the losses that maybe they are experiencing on the price depreciation that some of them are currently seeing. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it from a personal investor point of view as well.
Okay, so I want to tell you a quick story. Fortunately, I kind of lived through this. A couple years ago, there's a company listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange called Lascelles Demercado. Right? It's now owned by Campari. That company paid, I think it's a 2-cent dividend. Really ridiculous amount of money they used to pay it. And at the time, the management and the chair, the board and the executives always said that we're about growth. Some point in the past, that company traded at 13 Jamaican dollars per share. That company went through 2 rounds of acquisition. It was bought by Lawrence Dupree Clico for, I think, $13 US, followed by a buyout by Campari at a much higher number. So, I just say that to say that sometimes you have to really understand what is being created.
Okay.
And I give you a good story. I'm quite sure I can find a bad story to tell you, but when I talk about dividends,
that's good enough. I appreciate that. So final question from me. I don't see anything else in the chat right now. So what's the outlook in general, short to midterm for VMIL? What can we expect in terms of Q3? And what can we expect for, end of year 2022?
Okay, no problem. Okay, so I can't speak to the numbers, and I won't speak to the numbers, or I will lose my personal license to run this organization. But as I said before, very challenging year. The management team is however very results focused. Want to ensure that we live up to our responsibility to our shareholders to provide growth and performance. And that tone from the top is also echoed by the group executives and the governance framework, the board within VMIL. So, I think for 2022, we're going to have a fairly decent year. 2023, again, another challenging year. A couple of things that we're focusing on for next year. We spoke to it, at investor briefing. Spoke to it in our annual report. Lots more acquisitions are going to be on the cards for us. The Republic one, the one for RFI in Barbados. I call that a warm up. For where we need to get to, we need a couple more chunky acquisitions. That's one. Two, talent retention, talent growth is fundamental in this business. So the areas that we need to exploit, we need to ensure that we have the talent to do that value creation. That's two. And in terms of our digitalization thrust, in as much as we have a very robust operating platform, we have our client management portal, our IPO platform got raving reviews when we did the dollar transaction. We have to continue to kind of, build out on these platforms and put in additional platforms to make it, a lot more easier for potential clients to do business with us. So, you're going to see a lot more transactions coming out. We spoke about bond trading, spoke about digital asset trading, a lot more attention in terms of risk management regarding the treasury management business. And then we're also going to see lots more portfolios being launched on the asset management platform in Jamaica and in the Southern Caribbean.
All right, interesting stuff. So we'll definitely be reaching out for further conversations. I think that we will be, looking out for the next two reports. And, some of the things that you said without saying, we'll be looking out for some of those updates as well. So thank you so much, Rez. Really, really do appreciate the time. Thank you for everything that you've shared. All the best to you and the VM team.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jeremy, and thanks for your listeners. And just on the record, I want to salute my team. Very hardworking team, very committed. The results that we are delivering is, kudos to the team, and obviously the support provided by the VMG, the executive, the support units, and our board of directors and other stakeholders. So I just want to recognize the persons who are fueling the growth of this organization.
All right, great. Yes, definitely. I was thinking about that as well. If we're seeing so much from the team, then visibly, then there is a lot more, I'm sure, going on behind the scenes as well. So,
lots of intensity happening within the group.
All right. Thanks again, Rez. Take care.
All right. Cheers.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please like the video before you go. I shared the link to our Telegram group. Please be sure to check us out there. Let us know who you'd like us to interview next. Share in the comments below if there are any CEOs you'd like us to speak with. Thank you so much for watching this. I'll see you in the very next video.
Learning is the key to successful investing. And who doesn't want to invest in some way?
Here at L.E.A.R.N Invest, we focus on financial education, all with the aim of sharing our knowledge on personal finance, investing, and building wealth. We do this on the foundation of our faith in God.
If a more holistic approach is what you need, check out our Grow Faith-based financial coaching program.
Find out more about us at learngrowinvestclub.com.
And follow us on all social media platforms at Learn, Grow,